here with a first impressions video for you. Now the first impressions is not of this knife right here. This of course is the Hinderer XM18 that I've had for a while. Many of you have seen it and are familiar with it, but I do want to bring this in to kind of start us off because I'm a big fan of the XM18. I'm a big fan of Hinderer knives in general. I tend to like the style quite a bit. He's got a few knives out there that I don't love, mostly based on size, but one of the things that I have wanted to do ever since I've been involved in making videos and been interested in knives at all, and since I even learned that there was such a thing as an XM18, was to check out the larger version of this knife. However, the larger version of this knife is a little more expensive and not quite as popular. So because these are so prolific, you can often find them on the secondary market, you find them in trades, you find XM18s all over the place. They're not that hard to come by, and they're not that expensive. Well, they're expensive, but especially on the secondary market, you can probably get yourself one for $350, give or take 25 bucks. Okay, now the XM24 is a little different. This is a knife that you don't find so frequently, but it's one that I've been super curious about. So recently I was able to work out getting one in a trade, and that's the knife that I want to give a first impressions on for you today. Now, a lot of the things that I'm going to say about this knife will be things that I could just as easily say about the XM18, and so I kind of wanted to bring it in, and to me, the XM18 is one of the more ideal higher end folding knives out there. And so the question becomes, is all the goodness of the XM18 preserved and amplified in the XM24, or does it not quite translate as well? And really that's a question we'll answer more fully in the full review of this knife. I will, by the way, do a full review of the XM24 as well as a comparison video where we get into a little more detail in terms of showing you how these guys compare to one another and giving you a good idea if perhaps you're a fan of the XM18, if a 24 is something you should be after. The other thing I need to say here while we're just kind of introducing things is that this is an older XM24. It's not the new one with the tri-way pivot, and there are some variants of the XM24. Not as many as are of the XM18, but if this spanto grind in the full size configuration doesn't do it for you, there are some others. There's a slim, there are a number of different blade grinds. There's of course the new ones with the tri-way pivot and the lock bar insert. So keep that in the back of your mind as we work our way through this. Now there's the feel in hand and the cutting power and a lot of those things are going to be exactly the same, but just so you know, there are some variants of this knife available. So this isn't sort of like the definitive word on this. We'd have to have all the versions to really do something like that. But I think I should be able to give you, but I will share you first of all my overall impression of this knife, what I think of it initially, and kind of give you an idea of where I think this is going, whether ultimately it's going to hold up in comparison to the XM18. So first thing is, this is bigger, okay? By the way, let me say something here. So here's an XM18, here's an XM24. Now I don't know if you've noticed, but simple algebra would indicate that there's a pattern happening here, right, where we go up by 6. Now what I wonder about is why the 3-inch, okay, XM18 isn't the XM12. All right, that kind of makes me scratch my head a little bit, and I would have liked to see them stick with the naming convention they had sort of already established. All right, so lots of similar stuff here. Hinderer clip, the lock bar, the insert here, these are interchangeable between the two. You can still do the hardware replacement on Hinderer's website. We've got a spanto grind with a user finish here. Now this blade has been sharpened. All right, no lock bar insert because, as we said, this is an older version. Nice flipping action, and this is, I'm not the first one to comment on this, but the 24 definitely flips better than the 18, and that's because there's so much extra blade weight there that the inertia involved just really gets this moving quickly and easily. I do like the Spanto blade. I think, when the original Hinderers, when the original XM18s came out with the Spanto blade, it was a great idea. It allowed for a very strong, heavy-duty blade that could still, strike a balance where it was able to cut stuff. And, I'm still a fan of the Spanto blade. Let me give you a quick rundown on size and weight before we get too much into. I'll come back and cover some of the other things in a minute, but size and weight on this: 9 and almost a quarter inches, 3 and 15/16 on the blade length, so just a hair under 4 inches. The handle is 5 and 7/16, so just a little under. That's the closed length. Okay, so a little bit under 5.5 inches. 4.25 inch grip area. So if you're a really big guy and you've got large hands, you can see you could have massive hands and have, just a very, very easy time with this knife and have lots of space there for whatever size hand you might be dealing with. All right, and if you had hands that big that you need this kind of a knife, you're going to be limited to the kind of knives that are really comfortable for you. Now, this is very heavy. I guess not very heavy. That's not fair. I've got the Formax still in the collection, and it outweighs this by a good margin. But this is 7.9 ounces, so it's pretty hefty, and that's definitely something that we have to consider. Also, I guess we already mentioned that there are variations available. So now that we've kind of gone, we've got typical G10 here from the Hinderer, typical hardware. Again, there's a lot of stuff that is carried over, okay? Even the ergonomics, the overall handle shape, okay, is very much like the XM18. You can sort of see that there. And it does feel very, very good in hand. Now, let me give you my initial impressions of this knife. This is a big, impressive knife, really, really heavily built. Definitely, sort of a tank of a knife. It is comfortable in hand. It does cut reasonably well. The one thing I would say is this: when you go up to this size, okay, from the standard size, from the XM18, you do lose a certain amount of practicality, okay, because this is not nearly as easy to carry. You really do notice this in your pocket. Even when you're holding it in hand, you sort of go, wow, I've got a big knife here. Okay, by the way, the ability to choke up, which is of course also found on the XM18, does balance it out a little bit and allow you to, treat it like a smaller knife than it really is. And that definitely helps with ergonomics. It's still very comfortable in hand, very grippy. A lot of the same things in terms of ergonomics that you could say about the XM18. The only big difference, and here's the substantial thing, and here's my main impression, is the extra size does reduce its carryability a little bit and probably reduces its appeal. They're not, this is not going to be as widely appreciated as the 18. And I would say the same is probably true if you go smaller. The smaller size, again, limits you in certain ways and is just not going to be as versatile as the XM18. So there you go, guys. That's my initial thoughts on the XM24. Such a cool knife. I'm super stoked to have one and be able to check this out. I'm looking forward to carrying this around, to using it a bit, and to sharing with you guys a full review. Over that time, we'll see how much it grows on me, and if it pushes the XM18 out of my pocket, or if I still find myself favoring the favoring the 18, is what I was trying to say there. And I'll let you know all of that in the full review. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'd love to hear your feedback, right? Have you had one of these? Is the size off-putting to you, or, are you kind of like me where bigger is often better? Let me know. Don't know why I'm losing my voice here, but let me know down in the comments. We'll talk to you soon.